So in this presentation, we'll just go over the answers to the first set of problem sets in which we are introducing wedge in as a rule. So you're going to hear me repeat a bunch of things as I usually do because logic is just a just a force on repetition and following rules. So again, first thing we always do is just list a bunch of numbers going vertically. We list our premises like this. We mark them with A's for assumptions. We associate them with the line numbers they appear on. And so that's where we start from. Now let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is a wedge. So that's telling me I either need P and Q, which is one side of our wedge, or R. If I can get one of those sides, I can wedge in the other one. Now let's look at our premises because we need either R or P and Q. And I don't see R anywhere, so I already know that I'm shooting for this. Because there is no R. If there was an R, maybe we could get it out and then wedge in the P and Q. But there isn't an R in our premises, so we already know that one's off limits. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to find P and Q and then wedge in our R. Well, luckily, in our first two premises, we have P and Q given to us. So we can just go ahead and put them together using our ampersand rule. So where's my P? It's in line 1. Where's my Q? It's in line 2. What am I doing? I'm introducing an ampersand between them. What numbers are associated with 1? What numbers are associated with 2? 2. And then now that I have found my wedge, or sorry, one side of my wedge, I guess I should say, I can wedge in the other side. So P and Q, wedge in R. So that's going to be 3, wedge in. And then what numbers are next to 3? 1 and 2. And all these other ones are not needed. That was the conclusion we were looking to get to, so we are all done with the first problem. Moving on to the second problem, first step, as always, is just list all these numbers vertically. List our premises. 2. Then let's look at our conclusion. I've got R or Q, so that's telling me, like the previous problem, I'm looking for either R or Q, and then I'll wedge them together. Well, looking at the premises, I only have Q, there is no R, so I just need to find a way to get Q, and then I'll wedge in R. Well, this is bound up to a conditional statement, but luckily my second assumption gives me the left side of it, so I can write Q here. That's going to be from 1, which is my conditional statement, 2, which is my antecedent, and what am I doing? I'm removing the arrow, so that's 1 and 2. Now I've found my Q, so all I have to do is wedge in my R, and if you remember from our wedge in rule, it doesn't matter which side the R goes on, as long as you have one of the disjuncts, you can wedge in the other one. So I have the Q and 3, I'm wedging in. What numbers are next to 3? 2, and that is our second proof. On to proof 3, listing our numbers vertically again. We got P and Q is our only assumption. Got 1. Let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion again is a wedge. So we've got P arrow T on one side and we got Q on the other side. Now here's where it might be a little bit difficult. Because you say to yourself, well, I have a P and I have a Q somewhere. I don't have the T anywhere. I do have the P and Q. So which one should I be looking to get to? Well, remember that this is not just P. This is P arrow T. So you need to find that exact statement somewhere in the proof. And you just simply don't have it here. You don't have the tools yet to build it either. But the proof doesn't offer those anyway. But what we do have is the Q by itself. The Q by itself we could surely get to because we have this right here. We have this ampersand statement, so we could just go ahead and free up the Q from line 1 using our ampersand out. If we wanted to, we could free up our P as well, but we're not going to end up using it for anything. And since we have the Q by itself, we can wedge in anything that we want. It doesn't matter how long it is or what the statement says. We can wedge in anything as long as we have one side of the wedge. So from 2, and wedge in, and only number next to 2 is 1. So something that looks a little bit complicated, again, is just added on to one of the disjuncts that you already have. And you have to make sure that you're looking for the exact or the exact disjunct that the conclusion is asking for. There is no P arrow T in the premises. You can't build P arrow T. Even if you had the rule, there's no way to build it. But you do have Q. So we go for Q and then we wedge in the other side. So I've got my list or numbers listed vertically here again. Now I just want to put my premises in. Assumption 1, P assumption 2, Q assumption 3. I'm getting all those from up here. Now that I have all that, let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is a wedge again, so I'm looking for either T or S. And just as previous problems have sort of shown, like I'm looking for T or S somewhere in my premises so I know what I'm building with. The only one I can find in my premises is T. And so I know I'm not going to find S and then wedge in T. I'm going to get to T and then I'm going to wedge in S. So let's look at what the T is bound up with. Well, the T is bound up with this conditional statement here. So I need P and Q together. I don't have it anywhere in the proof just yet, but I can build it because I have in 2 and 3 the necessary pieces to build the antecedent in 1. So 2 and 3 I'm going to put together using ampersand introduction. The numbers 2 and 3 are next to those two. And then I have the left side here, so I can toss the left side in, get the right side out down here. That's going to be from 1 and 4. 1's my conditional statement. 4 is my antecedent. That gives me 1, 2, and 3, because I have 2 and 3 here. I've got 1 here. So now I have found my T, and I just have to wedge in my S. So from 5, wedge in. And 1, 2, and 3 are next to 5. We can erase these other numbers. We didn't need them. But that was the conclusion we were looking to get to, and so that's where we finish up. Now on to 5. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. So how many premises do I got? I got 1, 2, P arrow, or P wedge Q, arrow T, Q and S. It's an assumption, 1 and 2. Now, let's look at our conclusion. I've got a wedge statement, so S and T, or M. And let's see, do we have M anywhere in our proof? No, so I know I'm not building M. I'm looking for S and T. Do I have S and T anywhere in my proof? No, but I do have an S here, and I have a T here. So what I should be doing is I should be looking to make this and then wedge in that M. So that's our game plan. We already know the roadmap before we get into the actual proof itself. So now let's look at the components of the proof that we have at our disposal at the very beginning. So I have a conditional statement here in line 1, and I have a conjunction here in line 2. So can I do anything with line 1? Well, it's a conditional statement. Do I have its antecedent? No, I don't. So can't do anything with line 1 until I get the antecedent for it. So that means the only thing I can do is break up this Q and S. So let's just do that. 2 ampersand out, 2 ampersand out. 2 and 2. Now I found my S. Now I just need my T. So still need to get to that conditional statement. Well, what do I have after I broke up the ampersand here in line 2? Well, I've got Q. And if we look at my antecedent up here, there's a Q in it. I just need to wedge in P to get the P or Q. So my 3 is where my wedge is at. What am I doing? I'm wedging in the P. So Q is associated with 3 there. So now I have the antecedent to my conditional statement. So I can write my consequent here in 6. So 1 is my conditional statement, 5 is my antecedent. What am I doing? I'm removing the arrow from 1, and then so I got numbers 1 and 2. Now I have my t that I was looking for here. Remember? So I have s and t. Got s here. I got t here. So let's put them together. S and t from 4 and 6. Ampersand in. 4's got 2, 6 has got 1 and 2. And now I've got one side of my conclusion, so I can wedge in the other side. 7 wedge in. 1, 2. And that is our proof for this one. So again, there's a roadmap that you can follow from the very beginning. We look at our conclusion. The main operator in the conclusion is a wedge. So we say, what's each disjunct? What's the left side? What's the right side of the wedge? Well, we notice that there is no M in our premises, so we know we're not shooting to find M and then wedging in P and Q. Or, sorry, S and T. So we need to build S and T to wedge in M. So we find where S and T is in our proof. We look to build S and T together and then wedge in the M, and then we are all done, just as we see here on the screen. So starting again by just listing a bunch of numbers vertically. We want to identify our premises. We've got 2 of them. E and T or Q. Arrow S. It's an assumption. 1. Q and T. Assumption. Line 2. Let's look at our conclusion now. Conclusion is an ampersand. So that means we need to find both T and S, and then we'll put them together with an ampersand at the very end. So here's my S, here's my T. So looking at 2 premises, well, we have a conditional statement here. We have an ampersand in line 2. So we can break the ampersand apart, of course, but we need the left side of this conditional to be able to get out the right side. Well, let's just start with what we can do. We can write the Q and T. We can separate those from 2 using the same rule. Take the left side or right side, put it there, left side, put it there. Same rule, both based on the same premise. Now I've got T. I'm still looking for S. So S is bound up with that conditional statement in 1. Well, what's the main operator in that antecedent? Well, the main operator is the wedge. And so immediately you should be thinking, well, I just need one of those sides that can wedge in the other. Well, we're in luck because one of those sides is the Q that we already have right here. So since we have the Q, we can wedge in the P and T, or Q, like that, using our wedge in rule. 2 is next to 3 up here, so now we can take this and toss it into our conditional statement up there. to get our s by itself here in line 6, I'm going to have to erase this real quick just to get it up. So our s can go here. That's going to be from 1 and 5. What are we doing? We're getting rid of that arrow, and 1, number 1 is next to 1, 2 is next to 5. So now we've got the other piece of our conjunction that we needed. Let's erase this. So we have our S, we have our T. We're looking to build T and S, so we'll just put those together. 4 and 6, ampersand N, 4 and 6, both have 1 and 2, or it's just going to be 1 and 2. And so there is our proof for the 6th one. Moving on to 7. Listing numbers vertically. How many premises do I have? I've got 2. So I got P or Q or S, arrow T, and P. 1 and 2. Our conclusion is just the letter P, or sorry, letter T. And we see it's right here. And it's bound up with this antecedent. Now, the important thing is to look at the antecedent and see if we can make it with what we've got. So, what's the main operator there in this antecedent? It's this wedge. So we have the S on one side, we have the P or Q on the other side. Do we have that yet? No. We don't have either P or Q or S. But looking at that left side, the P or Q, we do have one of those terms. We've got the P. So since we have the P, we can wedge in the Q in line 3 using our wedge in rule. And now that's one of our terms. That is this term right here. So since we have P or Q, we can wedge in the S using 3 wedge in. And then we have our antecedent that we can toss into there. Can get our consequent, write it down here. That's 1 and 4. Arrow out. 1 and 4, we'll have 1 and 2 next to it, just like that. Now, it's important to do it in this order. You might say, well, did I need to do P or Q before I did P or Q or S? And yes, you do have to do them in this order because it's the order of, or it's the order of the operators. The wedge that's binding the P or Q or S is the main operator. So we have to build from the smallest P, or build the smallest pieces and then put them together at the macro level. So we couldn't have done Q or S, say we couldn't have made Q or S or something like that, and then made P or Q or S, because ultimately our parentheses would have went with it like this. So you have to build the smallest one first, which the smallest one was our P or Q. So from our P, we built P or Q. From that, we put P or Q next to the S. So order of operations does matter. But that is our proof for number 7. Now looking at 8, we have, it looks like 2 premises here. Got S, and then this conditional statement, right? S, assumption, and then P and Q or S, arrow, T and L, 2. I know that looks very intimidating right now, but we should be able to build that based on what we've got. Let's look at our conclusion. Our conclusion is an ampersand. It's L and T. That's telling me I'm looking for L by itself, I'm looking for T by itself, and then I'm going to put them together to create L and T. Well, what do I have? I have a single letter by itself in the first assumption, and then I have this conditional statement here. And look, my T and L are on the right side of that conditional statement. So I got to build that conditional statement, or I've got to build the antecedent to that conditional statement in order to free up the T and L. So let's look at the antecedent to that conditional statement. Well, the main operator in that antecedent is a wedge. And so I should be asking myself, do I have either of the terms? Do I have S by itself or P and Q by itself? And the answer is yes, I do have the S by itself. So I can take the S by itself and I can wedge in the P and Q. So from 1, wedge in. And now I have the antecedent to my conditional statement here in 2. Which means I can write the consequent in line 4. So line 2 is my conditional statement, line 3 is my antecedent. I'm removing the arrow from it. So that's going to be 1 and 2 are next to 2 and 3. Now, is that exactly what I'm looking for here, my conclusion? No, I'm not looking for T and L, I'm looking for L and T. So I have to deconstruct this. I need to write the T by itself and the L by itself by deconstructing 4. And then I'll put them together the way that I need to. Using my ampersand in rule. So we had to deconstruct the consequent from our conditional statement to just the simple T and L, and then we reintroduced them together using the ampersand in rule. Now on to problem 9. How many premises do I have? I've got 2. P arrow Q and T. It's an assumption. P and M as an assumption. Now, let's look at my conclusion. My conclusion, the main operator is the wedge. So I'm looking for M and Q, or I'm looking for S. As long as I can get one of them, I can wedge in the other one with my wedge in rule. So let's look at the 2 premises that I have. I don't see S anywhere there. So obviously S is not going to be what I find. It's going to be what I wedge in later. I'm looking for M and Q then. Well, I got Q here and I've got M here. So that gives me a roadmap. Let's look at our 2 premises. Well, I've got conditional statement here in 1. I've got an ampersand. In line 2, can't do anything with my conditional statement because I don't have its left side. So I'll deconstruct the ampersand in line 2. Now I've got my M. I've got one of my conjuncts. And also by freeing up that ampersand, I got my antecedent to my conditional statement. So I'll write my consequent in full here. And so that's going to be from 1 and 4, or 1 and 3, arrow out. Still looking for my Q, so I can get that. Oh, sorry, I should get these 2 here. Still need my Q. I can get it by breaking up this ampersand. I'm going to go ahead and get the T by itself too. I'm not going to need it, but I can because the rules tell me I can have it. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Ultimately, I would get rid of that. You don't have to mark it out, by the way. I'm just marking it out because it's not needed, and sometimes, especially on the exam, if it's not needed, it's not there, so I'm just marking it out. But if you were to do the proof on your own and you had that line, totally fine. Well, now I've got my other conjunct, so I just need to put them together. So I need M and Q. My M is in line 4. My Q is in line 6. That's ampersand N. Number next to 4 is a 2. Number next to 6 is a 1 and 2. So we'll just do that. And now I have my left side of my disjunction that I'm looking to prove. So I can just do M and Q. Wedge in S. It's going to be from 8. Wedge in 1 and 2 are next to 8. If we changed up the numbers, got rid of this line, and this one would be 7. But that is problem 9. So let's do the final problem of this practice set. How many premises do I have? I have 2. So P or Q, arrow T or T arrow S. It's an assumption. I got P and T, also an assumption. Mark it with 2. Now let's look at our conclusion. It's just the letter S by itself, and I can only find it here. Well, before I can get to it, it's bound up with this conditional statement here. So I got this arrow. I need the left side. The left side is P or Q. And again, if you see a conditional statement and its antecedent is a wedge, it's more than likely you're going to have to build it. So you'll just have to find one of the terms. Here we need to find either P or Q, and we'll wedge in the other, and we'll knock out the arrow with what we create. So let's look at what we can do. The only thing we can do is break up this ampersand here in 2. We're going to take the ampersand here in 2. We'll write the left side, we'll write the right side. Now, I got the T, I got the P. Let's look back at our conditional statement. I need either Q or P, and then I can wedge in the other one. Well, luckily I've got the P by itself here in line 3. So I can wedge in the Q. From 3, wedge in. 3 only has the number 2 next to it. Now I've got the antecedent, and I can write my consequent down here. T arrow S. So, still looking for the S. That's what I'm needing. And it's bound up with this conditional statement. Do I have its antecedent? I do, since I broke it up from line 2. So I can take the T, toss it into 6, and 4 and 6, and do arrow out. 4, yep, 4 has 2 next to it, 6 has 2 next to it. Oh, sorry. Did that slightly wrong. Let's see. So this one, got ahead of myself a little bit. I needed to write 1 and 5, arrow out. So 1 and 5, because here was my conditional statement 1, here was my left side in 5, so 1 and 2 go next to that. Now in line 6, line 7, I can write S by itself, because I have 4 as my antecedent to the conditional statement 6. I'm removing the arrow there, so that's going to be 1 and 2, just like that. So just to go over that one more time, I've got this conditional statement. I broke up my ampersand into these 2. Then I took this P and I built the the antecedent for this conditional statement. Wrote it down here. And then I had this conditional statement. And I tossed it in just like that. So let's clean this up. And there is our proof for the 10th problem. And so that concludes this set of practice problems.